This is episode 107 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Welcome to episode 107 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today I have Zac Willms on the show, and Zac is a relatively new investor, but he hit the ground running. He moves really quick, and I really like the way he thinks creatively about his real estate. So he bought a couple of properties. One, he's putting on an additional story, so it's a multiplex, and we call it the Big BRRRR for this episode. We dig deep into those numbers, and he also has a property with 7 garage units. He's presently earning $1,800 a month with 4 more units to rent out. And it's just a really interesting, really creative option because now he has to choose whether he wants to try and develop a laneway house or whether he wants to try and maximize that income from the garage rentals that are possible in his rear yard. So it's not often we get to talk about those different forms of income that you can get from your properties. So I really like digging into that and digging into the different case studies that Zac brought with him for today's episode. Zac is a realtor out of Hamilton, Ontario, really smart, really savvy, and it was a great conversation. I'm confident you're going to really enjoy this one. As always, if you're new to the podcast, make sure you head right back to episode 1 so that you can benefit from all the wisdom dropped. And we do get right into the nuts and bolts of the BRRRR strategy and other basic fundamentals needed in order to be successful in real estate investing. If you haven't already, please make sure that you like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and leave a comment. And if you're an audio listener, if you could kindly leave me a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, it'd be greatly appreciated. All these things just help more people to find the show and benefit from the show. Really quick announcement before we get on with the episode. I'm doing my first ever live episode. So this is a live episode where you'll get to actually interact with the guest, be part of the interview, and also ask questions at the end. So we're going to do some Q&A with Dylan Suter. So those of you may remember Dylan being on the podcast on episode 24. He's presently over 300 units and he's showing no signs of stopping. So we're going to dig right into the mindset. We're going to dig into the fundamentals, what he's doing, and you're going to have a chance to ask your questions. So you're not going to want to miss this one. If you're interested in being on this live stream, it's going to be streaming on YouTube on Wednesday, March 3rd at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This will be available on my YouTube channel, but for easy access directly to the video, go to www.andrew-hines.com/DS live. So that's DS for Dylan Suter live. So the link is there. You can set a reminder, and it's really important, set a reminder so that you get notified by YouTube when the episode is streaming, and then you'll have direct access to it from there. I'm really looking forward to this. I know that you're going to enjoy it as well. But before we get there, let's go ahead and dig in here with Zac Willms. Please enjoy. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I have, at long last, Zac Willms on the show. Zac, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Andrew. How you doing today, man?
Good. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. I know we talked about this a very long time ago, and then for some reason, it never happened.
Life happens. Likewise. Yeah. So looking forward to coming on the show.
Yeah. Okay. So Zac, we talked maybe about a year ago at a conference. You were telling me all the stuff you're into, lots of JVs, multi-units. I think you had a project with some garages attached to it.
I do. Good memory. Good memory.
Yeah, it's all coming back to me. So anyways, why don't you just give the intro about yourself, what you do, and then we'll dig in.
Absolutely. So I probably got really started in real estate, hardcore investing about 2 years ago, I would say, when I really started to focus in on it. And since then, I've definitely been able to grow my portfolio quite fast. It's been an exciting ride and I'm looking forward to the future, but it basically started off kind of similar to most people, I would say, starting off with the smaller multifamily properties and quickly realizing that the bigger you go, kind of the better the profits you get, and the more work you decide to put in, the more rewards at the end of the day. Yeah. Right. So that's when I kind of got into looking at the bigger multis, doing some of the BRRRR conversion properties. Yeah. And now looking forward to the future, doing some bigger multis.
So walk me through the progression of what you bought 2 years ago, what you got. Well, first off, what do you got in your portfolio right now?
So it's a good mix of duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, a current six-plex under construction. The garage one, I don't know what you can really call that. It's a duplex with about 7 garages on it. So
yeah, I was trying to remember the details about that one.
It's a pretty interesting property. When I saw it listed, it's definitely one of a kind. So I figured I had to have something like that in my portfolio. But I started off with the duplex, nice and simple, still own it today. Top units in Airbnb. The main floor is just a regular year-long rental. So that's still going strong, about 2 years into it. Then moved up into a triplex, which was a little bit more turnkey, I would say something nice and easy that you can just buy, cash flows from day one. Did a little turnover, a unit renovation, and still own that today, and then jumped into that duplex with the garages, and now really focusing on the BRRRR strategy.
Okay. So you weren't really doing BRRRR initially, you were just kind of buying, now was that with joint ventures or just yourself?
With joint ventures, yeah. That was kind of nice and simple, buying turnkey properties, figuring out that there's a little bit of room to move up rents and cash flow. And then about a year ago, got really into the BRRRR strategy. Realized listening to podcasts like yourself, everyone else is doing it. There's some great profits in it. So quickly turned into doing 2 of those and then a third one underway right now.
Yeah, what have we done? Created a little army of people that are going to compete for deals against us.
Absolutely.
I get so many people reaching out to me. Oh yeah, we do the BRRRR strategy. It's crazy how many people have like listened to this podcast and other ones similar and just started doing this.
And trust me, even as a real estate agent, I tell people about what I've done, and they say the same thing. They're like, "Can you find me one of those deals?"
Yeah.
And it's really not as easy as it sounds.
Yeah, it's not necessarily going to the perfect BRRRR where you pull all the money out. It's not really there. So how were you able to get partners to sign on when you weren't going to be doing a BRRRR, so to speak? You weren't promising them any equity back. Were they just really appealing cash flow numbers or upside? What was it?
It was a little bit of both. It was definitely the cash flow numbers. And to be honest, a lot of the joint venture partners I have don't know a lot about real estate. Right? They have some good money, they have families, they have kids. They don't have a lot of time to actually invest into the business, right? So I'm always been the working partner, one that's on the ground, doing the property management, dealing with the tenants, finding them, and kind of doing everything that's really involved in finding the deals and bringing it to fruition.
Now, so you're not going to hire out property management, or is that something you'll eventually do?
It's definitely something I've thought about in the future. Looking at some of these bigger projects, I think once I go over 12 units, it's definitely something I would consider. But staying in around the 6 range, it's usually something I can manage once everything's up and going. Typically, the property management isn't so bad on a month-to-month basis.
Yeah, I find certain types of properties are really easy to manage. Like I have a single family in London and the tenants take care of their own landscaping, snow removal, everything. They change their own furnace filters. I do nothing.
Beautiful.
They pay their own utilities. It's like not the most efficient in terms of returns, but oh my goodness, in terms of management, it's like nothing. And they just want to stay there.
Exactly.
And it cash flows well. Like it'd be a really bad decision for me to sell that one.
And that's the thing, right? Some properties are a little bit more management, some properties not so much. So if there was a property that was taking up too much of my time, I'd probably pass it off to a property manager at this point.
Yeah, that's what I think. And there's a big thing, like you have a property for a while, you kind of acknowledge how it is to manage. This specific property attracts this type of tenant. Do I want to deal with that? You know? I've got one that it's not the same as my other properties and it's getting a different type of tenant. And I'm like, maybe it's time to just cycle away. It's not to say that it's not a good property. It's just other people might be more suited to manage that specific property
100%
with their style. So, okay, so you've got a handful of properties. What are you up to, like 15, 16 units or more than that?
At this current point, I think I'm about 27.
27, okay. So I was off by a bit. All right. And how many joint venture partners are you splitting that among?
We are about, I want to say around 6 or 7 joint venture partners at this point.
Same ones that you started with?
No, a lot of different ones, to be honest. Everyone kind of brings something different to the table. So with one of my latest BRRRRs, I actually partnered with a general contractor so that he could take over most of the property and I could just kind of be on the back end helping manage with JV partners and things like that. But he's dealing with construction on a day-to-day basis.
So you don't get into the construction side of things?
Certain projects, yes. This project was honestly so big that it needed a full general contractor to take over everything from start to finish.
Okay, so this is the big project. We'll talk about that.
This is a big one.
Okay, so going back to the initial joint venture partners and how you attracted them, I'll say this it's been on my mind because a lot of people are of the opinion, and I think they've set the precedent for all other would-be joint venture partners, that you need to do a BRRRR and there needs to be money coming back. I feel like this floats around, and it kind of irritates me because maybe the deal doesn't fit a BRRRR, you know, and there are people out there that don't need the money back. They've got a good chunk, and if they can leave it in, I like to keep an open mind. I don't like to just do the same thing everybody else is doing just because they're doing it. So I like that you've got something, or you've done something without the BRRRR element to it. Is that something you would do again in the future? And how would you know if you'd found a deal that works for that?
You know what? It's absolutely something I do in the future. I think it really comes down to the person, right? So whenever I talk to potential JV partners, I'm not necessarily pushing what I do onto them. I'm kind of seeing what fits for them, right? Yeah. Some people don't want to get into a project that revolves around a $250,000 renovation because me and you know a lot can go wrong with those types of projects, right? Some partners let me just put in my down payment. It's cash flowing as of day one. You're going to manage it. I'm not going to hear from you every single day. And, keep giving my monthly cash flow and we'll sell it maybe in 5-6 years.
So you just say, hey, this is what you got to put in. You qualify for the mortgage.
Exactly.
This is what I expect we'll get, and I'll keep working to optimize it.
Exactly.
So you don't charge for the management. You just
for those
and
ones
that's
I
your
don't.
value add.
Exactly, right? But it all depends on the partner, right? Some partners do want to get into the BRRRRs. They do want to see the
money come
capital
back.
recycled. Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Other ones are just nice and simple. Let me just leave it in there for a couple of years and then evaluate in a few years. And to be honest, some of those projects might even have a potential future redevelopment, right?
Yeah.
So the one with the garages, there is a future, let's say 5 years down the road, that we can redevelop that, right? So that one was turnkey
You're
from day
saying
one.
put in more units or sever off
Exactly.
land?
Sever off some land, put in more units. There's some sort of aspect there that we both acknowledged from day one and said, maybe this is something we do in the future, but not right now. Let's just leave it cash flow for now.
Yeah, I like the idea of if you've got extra land, and this is why I say, if you have an opportunity to buy a property with extra land, you never know what planning changes will come in the future.
Exactly.
If you have the ability to work away at severing that lot, or so, and then building something nice, you can get all the approvals while cash flowing, while having your cash flow pay for the fees for the approvals.
100%.
And then you can just pull the trigger. Like that to me is like the best type of development, where you're taking something that you don't need to work, but you can pursue it and it doesn't really cost you much.
Exactly. And you're cash flowing while you're going through all the paperwork and plans and everything else as well.
So what do you think you might be able to build? Because 7 garages is pretty profitable. $200 a garage a month, or
Even
something?
more than that, you'd be surprised.
So what are you getting per month for garage?
One's a barn, which is renting at about $500 a month. I have 2 basically car shops on there as well, which are both getting about $400 a month. So just within the barns, there's easily about $1,800 worth of rent coming in.
Wow.
So they're doing well for me right now, but it does back onto a laneway, and Hamilton did just legalize laneway suites. So that is definitely something I'm considering for the future.
Laneway suites, even if you already have a duplex on the property, you can still do it?
That's kind of the gray area right now. They legally said it's for single family homes. You can put a secondary suite on the back, but they haven't said it for multifamily homes yet.
Yeah, but I mean, garages seem pretty profitable. Like, why would you switch? Like, your garages are profitable. So you said you have 3 of them of 7 rented.
Yeah.
Why not just rent the other 4, and then you have like $3,000, $4,000 a month?
Some of them are small. Some of them are like little shacks and things like that. I necessarily couldn't call them a garage, but it's just more for the future, like you said, potential to sever it, and also potential to get way more rent out of it and increase the whole value of the property.
Yeah, I mean, I think that an investor, though, like even myself, if I saw that you had 7 garages or even 4 that were profitable, I'd look at how much money does that make versus the other. Although you technically, I guess, should be charging HST on the rents for the garages.
It's a little bit in the gray area. Even when I bought it and I was talking to my lawyer about how do we set up the leases, is it commercial leases, is it residential leases? It's really depending on how I wanted to structure it. She said you could easily do it residential or you could easily do it commercial.
Yeah, well, you don't really want to go down the commercial route if you don't have to.
Exactly.
So is it just as simple as just write it on a residential lease, or
it's that simple?
So you just have them rent out the garage on a residential lease?
Exactly.
Oh,
So it's that simple.
She said that your accountant said there's no implication there?
No implications.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So even though it doesn't have a bathroom or a bedroom or anything like that, you can technically still rent it out. And
that's what we have.
They deal. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, you can put a little caveat: no bathroom or bedroom included.
Exactly. Not allowed to live in it.
You can rent it, but you're not allowed to live in it.
You can rent it, but you're not allowed to live in it.
Man, I like this. I guess you learn something every day. Are there any implications that you're aware of doing it that way, like limitations?
Not necessarily. I asked her, and we kind of went back and forth on this, and she even asked another lawyer, and she basically just said it really depends on the lease that you sign with them. If you go commercial and sign a commercial lease, then you're under all the commercial laws. If you stay under residential, you stay under the residential laws.
Very cool. Okay, I guess evicting is a little bit of a problem, though. You'd go through the normal landlord-tenant.
Exactly.
Yeah. Huh. Well, that's interesting to know. Okay, so let's look at the numbers for that one, just because I'm curious. Like, what did you buy that one for?
We bought that one for $525,000.
Okay, and then what kind of rentals do you have into the house and the garage and everything, all in?
All in about $15,000. It was just about 1 unit turnover.
Okay, so you're in for about $540,000. You didn't refinance that thing.
Nope.
And do you know what your value is, just out of curiosity? Or
I'd say we're easily somewhere around like 660, 670 at this point.
Okay.
Very conservatively.
All right, so even if we just say, $540,000 as the purchase, what kind of rent do you have on that place then?
So upstairs in the duplex is getting $1,850 plus hydro.
Okay.
Main floor is getting $1,450 plus hydro.
And then your garages are getting 17.
Garages, you can say, let me just do some quick math here. 400 plus 375 plus 500 plus 200, 200 plus 100. Yeah, you could say about $1,800.
Okay, so this property is generating $5,100 a month. That's pretty solid. So taxes on that place, what, $4,000 or so?
You're about 4,000. Yep.
Okay, and then insurance.
Insurance, we're a little bit more expensive because of the garages, so that was about 330.
Okay, so that's just about $4,000 a year. Maintenance, I'll just throw 5% in there. Utilities on an annual basis or monthly.
On a monthly basis, we're around about $300.
And let's just see. So you have maintenance, we have management.
Management's all me.
Okay, we won't include anything. Lawn cutting, snow removal.
You know what? I pay one of the garage guys $30 a month, or $3 every time he shovels the snow. So
okay, it's like $60 a month.
Yeah, you could say about 60.
And then lawn cutting, they do it.
They do it as well. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll call it maybe 60 a month across the year.
Yep, basically across the year.
Okay, so that's $720 a year, and then just miscellaneous to throw $500 in there. Okay, so your cap rate on this property, being $540 into it, is 6.46%. See, these are kind of numbers you don't hear about in Hamilton. Like people are buying stuff cap rates of 2%, 3%. Yeah. I mean, granted on multis, like
exactly. This one's definitely a unique one.
Yeah. So if we're approximately 80% mortgage, 30-year AM. I'm guessing you're like a 2.5 or almost 3% interest rate on that.
About 2.5. Yeah,
based on when you bought it. Yeah. So you're about $1,200 a month in cash flow on that place.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's a solid investment. And then if you want to break down those returns, so mortgage pay down, you're like $10,000 a year. Yep. Appreciation, if we say 3%, that's like 16. Although it's been better. I'm sure you've done very much better than that. $14,000 a year in cash flow, so that's like $41,000 a year return on an investment of about $189,000. Exactly. So total return on investment here is around 21%. But hey, that's a lot better than people are getting on their RSPs in most cases. So
it's one of my favorite properties.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the cash flow is nice. So your investor, is he motivated by cash flow? Like he wanted,
absolutely.
Yeah. So again, you just got to satisfy people's needs, right?
And
like,
that's it.
If they have a problem or if they're looking for something. So how do you structure that? Do you have money coming into one account and you guys pay once you get over a certain amount?
Yeah, money all goes into the same account that we're joint on.
Yeah, do you have like once you hit $10,000, you can take everything on top of that, or?
So what we usually do is with your repairs and maintenance and vacancy, I always put that into a separate account.
Okay.
So if anything does happen, that money's already there and it doesn't come out of either one of our pockets as well.
So the centralized account, what's the procedure with that on a monthly basis then? So you get the money comes in, put some money into a repair and maintenance fund.
Yep.
And then the rest is just distributed?
Exactly. The rest is 50-50.
Awesome. Well, that's everyone has their own procedure with that. I think that's great. Like for me, I just like to have that account, that buffer, right? Because you never want to have to call them. Oh, hey Jim, I need 10 grand. I need 10 grand for a roof. No.
Would be a terrible call to make.
How would you do that if that came off something big? Would you guys both reach into your pocket, or would it be on your JV partner?
You know, yeah, it would likely, based on our contract, have to come through the JV partner, right? But again,
you don't want that to happen, right?
No, right? And real estate is all about relations, right? So if it did come down to it and they were tight on it, I'm sure we would make something work.
Yeah, that's the key thing, is not to have to make that call. Exactly. Like having the foresight and knowing what happens, what can happen. I just know roofs, furnaces, those are the ones that could surprise you, sneak up on you, and all of a sudden you're into a big expense. The other ones you can usually see them coming. Except for roots in a sewer, which can cause a lot of damage and maybe
had that happen once too. That's not fun.
Those are the least fun of all the things that can. I think the least fun. I would say water in the basement is right up there, and depending on how poopy things get, it could be real bad.
Very sticky.
With the sewer. Oh man, it's a gross one. Okay, so that looks like a solid property. Obviously, it seems like you like it. I love the future upside of that. Like the potential is great. If you keep making bets like that, eventually a few of them are going to pay off.
That's what we're looking for.
Okay, so let's talk about the big project.
The BRRRR, absolutely.
Okay, so you got a big BRRRR. All right, what is it first off?
This is a big 2.5-story home, downtown Hamilton. Used to be actually a squatter's house when we bought it. So when we went in there was beds on the floor, needles everywhere. It was quite the horror-looking home when we first bought it. And every time we talked to even mortgage brokers and people looked at the pictures on Google Maps, they were like, what did you guys buy?
Yeah.
But
is it an okay area?
It's in a great area. It's one of my favorite streets of Hamilton. We got it at a great price. Got it the first day it listed on the market. They were actually holding back offers, and we gave them a bully offer first day and they accepted it.
That works?
It works.
Okay.
To be honest, was a little bit shocked when they accepted it too, but it ended up working out for us.
I say that tongue in cheek, but so bully offers these days seem like they might be a little bit more challenging because all these buyers seem to know, or sellers seem to know, that they can get an arm and 10 legs for their properties. So what did you have to do? Explain the circumstance of what you had to do to make that work.
So they had it listed at $450, holding offers back for a week. We went in the first day, gave them an extra $26,000 firm offer, deposit in hand, and basically pushed them a little bit, saying how bad the property was and kind of talking about the comparables, and got them to accept it that day.
So you went in person?
Went in person, talked to the agent.
That's huge.
Right. And
how
you
do
know
you
what?
set up that type of meeting? Like, how do you do that? You just call the realtor, say, I want to come present to you with an offer?
Basically, and you know what? The stars aligned. He was a Toronto agent. He was in Hamilton for the day, kind of dealing with the listing and with his client. Didn't really know the market kind of as well as probably some of the other Hamilton realtors did. So we kind of snuck in there at the right time in the right place and got a great offer in.
Okay, so it pays to be savvy in real estate. You're a realtor, obviously. You have that that knowledge. So yeah, for anyone listening who's not familiar with the bully offer, that's when you don't wait until the realtor listing the property says offers are to be made irrevocable until. So present offers on Friday, make irrevocable for what, 24 hours? They probably say.
Yep.
So you didn't do any of that. You just went right in and said, no, we're not waiting. And I think the motivation is pretty obvious with this. Is like, a bird in hand is worth two in the bush, the expression. So they have an offer right there with a deposit. You give them what, like 20 grand deposit?
20 grand.
Yeah, good guess. So you give them a good deposit. You showed you're serious. You're a realtor. You show professionalism. Now they're going to think, well, wait a minute. We could wait, but what if we wait and we actually don't get 26 grand over? So you created doubt. And you gave them a motivation to say, okay, you know what? Let's just take this. We might get more, but I feel more comfortable just saying it's done. And we made a good buck. We're over ask.
100%.
Great.
And with the being a squatter's house, and we started to learn the history of this property, this seller unfortunately had a really, really tough time with this property. His plan was to renovate it and bring it back to life to what it is looking like today. And unfortunately, the squatters just kept ruining all of his plans.
Yeah, were they going in and like cutting out the copper?
Exactly, breaking windows, things like that. So unfortunately, it was just the right time at the right place for us, and made him happy, made us happy.
I went into a place. I was being asked to potentially rebuild this place, so I was involved, and I went to check it out because we were either going to rebuild it or actually tear it down and build a new house. And I walked inside, and there were just so somebody had come in, and they had actually cut and harvested all the copper, but didn't take it. It was sitting neatly stacked on the counter, like ready, like they were going to come back. This is how comfortable they were with this property, that they could just come in whenever they wanted. So we cut it all out. They did all the work the night before, and now they were just going to take the copper and kind of cash it as they needed it, I guess.
Wow. Comfortable enough that, I'll come back and get it later.
Yeah, and of course, you got needles. I walked in there one day, and then the water was actually like pouring out before the meter. So there was a break before the meter. I'm like, I wonder how many like gallons of water. And so in Hamilton, man, you see these things. You see squatters do terrible things to houses.
They're very crafty.
And it's not just Hamilton. Like, it's happened to me in London. I had a house that I bought that people had broken into and stole all the copper. So anytime you see a house with fresh PEX lines and it's an old house, start questioning why that is. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, look, it's got brand new PEX. There's a reason for that.
Yeah. Why does it have that?
Because copper's just fine.
Yeah,
absolutely. Just, no one wants to steal the plastic PEX stuff. So, anyways, not to digress here. So what are you doing to the place?
So we are turning it into 4 units. To do that, we actually had to rip off the entire roof, basically about 85% of it, to get the height that we needed. Yeah, big dormer, and to get the light that we needed for the unit and for the back entrance as well.
So you had an engineer do all this up for you?
Yep, engineer and architect.
Okay, so when you say architect, are you referring to like somebody with a college diploma and they have the architect designation? Or actual architect? Actual architect. Really?
Yeah, to do the full drawings, because we end up ripping off about 85% of it to extend the roof line up to get the exact height that we needed. And we had to draw out the entire building as well.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll work with typically like a combo, like it's a company, he's an engineer, but he has people with the BCIN designation. Okay. So they might come in and do all the designs and stuff, and then the engineer would sign off on all the structural. And that's worked out really well. I'd be very curious who you're using up this way. And you don't have to say it now if you don't want to, but it's great to have people who can do that kind of work and conceptualize it. Did they want to know anything about your footings, or because you weren't changing the number of stories, they were good? Like you could just...
They were good with it. Yeah.
Good. All they had to do is just redesign the roof.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love getting into stuff like that because what you just described, most people don't want to do it.
Yeah. And that's why for this one, I did end up partnering with the general contractor just because of the scope of work was so big. And I knew working full time, I wouldn't be able to be there every single day and make sure that the project's going the way it should be going.
Okay, so big project. It sounds like a full guy. You're kind of doing the Sandy McKay special with the 4 units. I guess you probably know Sandy and
100%.
And Adrian. Of course, a lot of they're not the only ones doing this. So you're going to have 2 legal units, and then you're going to have ultimately 4, right?
The best part, three legal units with 1 that's an in-law suite.
One that's so it's all legal then, or?
The 4th one we couldn't get 100% legal just because of a 2-inch height difference in the basement, which is, in my opinion, a little bit crazy because when I'm in the basement looking outside the window, I'm actually above grade. The way these basements were, like chest height, I'm above grade. Yeah. But because we're 6'7", not 6'9", we couldn't be able to get the legal status for the basement without having to dig it out.
Gotta love these. You didn't want to dig it?
$80,000.
$80,000. See, these are the kind of numbers I usually hear about digging, but I've heard of people doing it real cheap.
We tried 3 different quotes. Everyone came back $80,000.
How much would you have been digging out? Like how many inches?
It was only about 6 inches.
It'd be interesting to just run the calculation because that doesn't sound like that much, but when you figure the volume of area to go down 6 inches on like what, 1,000 square feet? About
1,000 square feet. Yeah. And because it's a stone foundation, we also had to do benching, which we're losing a lot of square footage for as well.
Yeah.
And that just put us under the minimum square footage for that basement legal unit. So then we would have had to get a variance on top of that. So we figured it was probably going to increase our timeline by about 4 or 5 months. Just to get that all done.
So will you still go in and get like a fire inspection on the lower unit and get it all?
Yep.
So it'll all be properly set up.
Exactly.
It just won't satisfy the government's legal status.
Exactly.
Which I don't give legal advice, but everybody do what you want to do. And I think, it doesn't sound like a bad deal to me. Okay, so what'd you end up buying it for?
We ended up paying $476,000 for it.
$476,000. And then your reno is going to be a big one.
It's about $250,000.
$250,000. Okay, so you're in for $726,000, and I actually just had Austin Mulder on the show, and he was talking about his. He got his appraisal back at $970,000.
Wow, we got ours at $950,000.
$950,000. Yeah. Okay, but his he just got it back like last week, I think. So this was a little while ago.
Well, so for our appraiser, we actually got it done at the front end. So
he gave you an as on it. Initial and on complete.
Exactly.
But they're probably still gonna the bank's still gonna want to do a fresh one.
100%.
So you could very well find a better. But yeah, we'll just assume $950,000.
Yeah.
So purchase $476,000, $250,000 reno, and that would include carrying costs and such.
That includes carrying costs.
And so you're in for $726,000, new value of $950,000, and then if we get 80%. On the new mortgage, then you're going to get $760,000. So you are actually going to be pulling out about $34,000. So
worked out well for us. Now for this one, I actually did a little bit something different on the back end because the general contractor wants to go on and do other projects and didn't necessarily want to stay on. What I did is I actually found a JV partner to sell this project to that I could stay on with 50-50 and we could cash out the general contractor.
So I know a guy who does that. Actually, he's been on the podcast a couple of times. My buddy Carlo, he actually will sell the project to an investor and then JV back. So his company owns it. They do the reno and all the stuff, sell it to the end user, and then basically he circles his money back around and basically buys it from himself.
Very similar to what I'm doing with this project.
Yeah, that's a great structure. So at the end of the day, how much money are you going to be in on this project with?
I should be in for $0.
So the other JV is going to be putting in all the money. So you're still in for nothing. And you're still going to own 50%.
And I still should be getting a little bit of a profit, probably around $25,000, $30,000
on the renovation. Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's just treat it as if you were refining at the $950 for simplicity's sake. I know it's roughly going to be a little bit different than that. Okay, so rent on that property, what are we looking at?
I'm looking at about $62.50 every single month.
$62.50. That's a nice.
You like that number?
That's a really nice rent. So $62.50. How does that break down? Like $2,000 on the main 2 units, and then
basically. So our basement's going to be about $12.50. It's a 1 bedroom. Main floor is a huge 1 bedroom, like 9.5 foot ceilings, which is going to be about $1,500, and then being conservative. Second floor is 2 bedrooms, going to be about 2,000, and then the top floor, which is a really, really nice big open space, is going to be about another $1,500.
Another $1,500. Well, that's fantastic. So 6,250 across the house. I just leave a 2% vacancy here, but okay, so that one's, your taxes are going to get reassessed after they close the permit. Sure. What do you figure you're going to be in at?
I'll probably be somewhere around $450 to $500 a month in taxes.
Okay, so 500 times 12, so that's $6,000 a year. Insurance on that one probably what?
It's going to be a little bit higher, so likely in around the 220, 250 range.
A month?
Yeah.
Okay, so 250 times 12. Yeah, $3,000 a year makes sense for that. Maintenance we'll leave at 5% for now because you're going to have a fresh reno.
For sure.
Utilities on that.
So they all are separate hydro meters. The way we set it up is that the basement unit is going to be also on all the exterior. So that's going to be the only one that's going to be all inclusive.
Okay, so basement unit is all inclusive. Now, do you have a centralized furnace for this house?
Central furnace. Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so probably a new gas furnace you're throwing in?
Exactly.
All right, so you're going to be paying gas, you're going to be paying water,
yep.
And then you're going to be paying one electric meter. So what do you figure you're going to be in for?
I figure I'm probably the same thing, around $550 a month.
$550 a month for all that?
I'm conservative.
Yeah, no, that's
the way I always do my numbers.
You know what, man? I like being conservative and then being pleasantly surprised.
Exactly.
There's the delicate balance of you don't want to be too conservative and cut yourself out of deals, but it doesn't seem like you're struggling with that. You seem to be doing well.
Yeah.
Okay, so management, you're not going to charge anything.
Nope.
And lawn cutting, we're going to leave it at $720?
There's basically nothing to cut.
Nothing to cut?
Nothing to shovel. There's a tiny little back parking space, but there's absolutely no grass.
So the tenants take care of their shoveling, so you don't have to do anything. Well, that's good because rarely with a fourplex can you get away with not having to do any of that stuff. Okay, so we'll leave a miscellaneous at $500. So hypothetically, if you did this deal 80%, 30-year AM, and now you can get like 2% interest.
Yep.
Your cash flow is going to be around just short of $1,000. Probably. Is that kind of what you're figuring?
Sounds about right. Like I said, the way we structured this, to be honest, when we sold it to our JV partners, we actually gave them a $50,000 deduction off what we thought it was going to be appraised for. That's kind of some built-in equity for them, a little bit of incentive value.
Okay, so they're buying it for less than $950.
Exactly. They're buying it for $900 basically, which makes the cash flow look a little bit better.
And it gives you some money in your pocket.
Exactly.
And then you're still going to get half that cash flow?
Yeah.
That's all right, man. You're building up this basic cash flow relatively quickly.
Yeah, it's looking good.
Okay, so let's break down the rest of your return. You've got your pay down about $19,800 a year.
Yep.
3% appreciation works out to be about $28,500 in a year, and then you got $11,954 of cash flow based on this model. So that's $60,000 total return, and you don't have an investment. So it's just an infinite return, and you're making $60,000. Well, half of that, $30,000 for your sweat. So that's the nice thing. You do the work up front, and then it just keeps paying you in perpetuity.
That's why I love real estate.
Yeah, that's why we invest in you. That's why I started the podcast, man. Yeah, and the numbers work well here too. Like we talk about covering a debt coverage ratio. If you wanted to finance this commercially, you got to have the 1.2 to 1. Your debt coverage ratio here is actually 1.35 to 1. So you're set up to get that full 80%. Obviously, every bank looks at it a little bit different on the residential side. You're just probably working with Scotiabank on this?
Yep.
Everybody seems to do it the same way.
Yeah.
Cat's out of the bag.
Exactly.
Buy a 2.5-story brick downtown Hamilton, gut it, make it into 4 units, and finance it with Scotiabank. Seems to be the recipe.
We're not trying to pave our own way. We're just looking at all the other paths and saying this looks like a good path for us.
But I like not reinventing the wheel. You recreate, and then you get creative after you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Once you know what you're doing, then you start getting more creative and doing things that you wouldn't do if you were just starting.
Then you can innovate a little bit and put your own little flair onto it.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are solid deals. This was bought in 2020, I'm guessing?
This was right at the beginning of 2020.
Okay, so you're all done now or close to?
We're basically just at the point now we're getting refinanced.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you remember, fire me some photos and I'll overlay them on this. I do like getting the visual. It's just sometimes they don't get to me in time.
I'll definitely give you some pictures.
All right. What else are you working on?
Right now, we got a brand new project that we just closed on at the end of 2020, which is going to be a six-plex conversion downtown Hamilton as well. The big one for this one was zoning. Right, when we looked at this property, it is the first house in from the King Street, which actually allows you to be in the transit corridor zoning, which allows you to make it into 6 legal units.
So how many units is it to start?
It was kind of like a rooming house, you could call it. Mm-hmm. It was basically 4 units with 2 shared kitchens, a little bit of everything in this property. It was very, very tough to understand what was actually going on, and the owner clearly wasn't in the right frame of mind to be an investor. So we picked it up at a great price and are going to turn it into something really, really nice.
Okay. And are you changing the physical structure in terms of footprint, or are you just working within the existing structure?
Working within the existing structure.
And there's enough room for 6 units?
It's basically very similar, 2.5-story brick home. It's about 2,600 square feet total, and it's going to be 2 apartments per floor.
So they're going to be real small units then?
They're going to be small. They're going to be bachelors and 1 bedrooms, but
like 500 square feet per unit or something?
Roughly about 560. But with the space that we're in and the area that we're in, to be honest, from property management, I like getting the smaller units, the 1 bedrooms, the bachelors in the downtown core, because I feel like they're so much easier to rent than trying to get some big 2 bedrooms or 3 bedroom units or anything like that.
Okay. Now, so this is really close to like, what would it be, like close to King Street? Are you near?
Yep.
Are you near? What's the popular street down there where all the they did the nice like refinishing, repaving?
Oh, I wish we were near
Locke.
King William and Locke Street.
Yeah, Locke Street's really nice. So you're not down there.
We're more east of downtown.
East of downtown, so towards where like the Tim Hortons Field is.
Yep, basically right between Tim Hortons Field and the downtown core.
Okay, yeah. So, and are you north of King or south of King?
We are just north of King.
Okay.
So I'll give a little tidbit. If you are the first house in from King or Main Street, you actually do get wrapped into their zoning, which makes those properties really, really valuable.
Oh, okay. So you're in that little scenario there.
Exactly.
Okay, so there's it pays to know the rules. And that's the big thing. Like if you understand zoning, you follow zoning, and you want to play within those rules, then it'll benefit you. You'll see a deal come up, you're like, oh, that's in that zone. Like I used to spend so much time on like the London property zoning map. Like I'd be searching it up, reading every bylaw. Like I'd print some stuff off and sketch it out with a ruler, see if it works.
It's one of the best tools.
Yeah, before I actually go to send it to my engineer or make an offer, I'm like sketching it out and saying, okay, this works within the bylaw. I can do that. So yeah, that's an awesome tidbit. So what did you end up buying that one for?
We bought that one for $500,000 off market from a wholesaler.
Okay, and are you going to need to pay development charges to go from 1 unit to?
Very, very likely.
Yeah. Do you know how much they'll be?
Usually Hamilton's around $15,000 to $17,000 per unit.
Per unit. So you think you're going to pay that on every single one?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I did have a guy on the podcast who told me he got an incentive to go to 3 units though, not to 6 in the downtown.
We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. So you're planning on that
Pending.
though? Okay. So you're $500 to buy. What do you figure you are to reno and develop?
We figure we're about $300,000 to $350,000.
Okay. Including development charges.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in for $850. Now this one's obviously very different. You're gonna be generating a lot more income. So what do you figure that's worth when you're done?
So our as complete appraisal came back at $1.4 million.
Wow. There's some serious money there.
There is.
Serious money. So now you're not gonna be able to get 80% on that though.
Not likely, because it's gonna probably go into commercial. So we're likely gonna be about 75 or maybe even 70% loan to value.
So I've heard that RBC will still do 6-plexes. Now, the question is, will they still be comfortable at a 1.4 valuation giving you a mortgage to 80%? That's going to be the real question. Yeah. I suspect they're going to probably want to trim it back a bit. Maybe go to 75. Even if you're at 75, if you really are just $500K to buy plus 350, you're in for 850 and your new mortgage is $1,050,000. So you're pulling out 200K. Now that's awesome.
Yeah, looking forward to that one.
Now rent on that one, have you crunched these numbers?
Yeah, I crunched them a little bit. Figure like a bachelor in Hamilton is going to be going for about $1,100, and likely 3, probably 4 of them. We're just finalizing the drawings as we speak. Yeah. So likely, let's say 4 of them are going to be about $1,100, and then there's going to be 2 decent sized 1 bedrooms, which we're probably going to be able to get about $1,450 to $1,500 for. Yeah.
Okay, so $1,450 times 2. So you're going to be getting $7,300 a month on this. Yeah. Nice spot. I mean, we could estimate, your taxes probably be $7,000 by the time you're done. Insurance is probably going to be $4,000. We're just doing fast numbers. 5% maintenance, utilities, maybe $8,000 a year or something.
Probably even a little bit less, because it is going to be all separate hydro meters. We're doing the dual heat and air conditioning units as well. So
are you doing ductless mini splits?
Ductless mini splits.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you're gonna be way less. You're probably gonna be like $4,000 a year max.
There we go.
You're just gonna have water, right? Mainly water and
mainly water. Yeah. 6 separate hot water tanks for everybody as well, all in the electric.
Yeah. Any lawn care or snow removal?
Next to nothing.
Garbage removal? Or
probably a little bit of garbage removal, but next to no lawn.
We'll put $1,000 in there for that kind of stuff, and then miscellaneous $500. So cap rate wise, I mean, this is getting more in line with what you'd kind of expect to see in Hamilton. Like it's a 3.97 cap rate, which I mean, that's probably pretty common.
Exactly. And that's actually how the appraiser looked at it on the as complete value as well.
That's how he came up with that. Yeah. So if we go the 75%, 25-year AM, or maybe you get 30 still? If you're doing residential with RBC, they should still.
Yeah, with residential likely, but not the commercial route.
Yeah. So if they give you the 2%, your cash flow isn't astronomical, but we're keeping in mind you're putting 200K in your pocket. So it looks like you'd be getting about $750 a month in cash flow.
Sounds about right.
Total return between cash flow appreciation and pay down, you're about 78,000, 79,000.
Beautiful.
On something you got nothing into, and it paid you 200K. So it doesn't owe you anything at that point. And that's pretty sweet. So yeah, these are fantastic projects. So you've given, this is probably more numbers than I've done in an episode.
Yeah, I love diving into the numbers.
But yeah, and I like that you're pretty conservative with your estimates. That's why you're getting into these deals. You know that they're going to work. So I want to shift gears into how you're finding these deals, what gives you the confidence, and how other people go about finding deals, not just in Hamilton right now, because there's a lot of markets that are going through the same thing. Yep. It's a seller's market everywhere, it seems. So what are you doing? What's giving you the confidence?
The confidence is kind of just what we talked about today, just doing these projects over and over and just really understanding the numbers, really understanding the market, where it's going, and the future outlook of even the rent potentials, right? Understanding what exactly you're going to be getting for rent, which gives you the confidence to be able to go do these projects.
Yeah. Once you know those rent potentials, you just work backwards on your spreadsheet and you're like, well, that should be worth this.
Exactly. It just comes down to the numbers, right? And that kind of gives me the confidence to go over and make these offers and pull these projects to the finish line.
That's what I like about the Airbnb model. Like when I hear other people, like the crazy numbers they're getting, I'm like, well, based on those numbers, this should be worth this. This is like, what am I missing, right? And I think, you know, the touchy thing with Airbnb is that at any given time, a municipality could change their rules, and you're vulnerable. COVID. And you're vulnerable. And yeah, I was going to ask you, you have your Airbnb unit, and how's that doing through the lockdown?
At the start, definitely like March and February was tough because Airbnb basically implemented a policy that you could do a free cancellation. So because of COVID, if anybody couldn't travel to Canada or couldn't travel because of COVID, they could get a brand new free cancellation. So left me with $0 to my name. Oh,
so that was a little rough on that one?
That was a little rough to get started, but quickly enough, to be honest, a lot of people started booking it up. I think people were just looking for an excuse to get out of their house. So I feel like I even had people in Hamilton booking my apartment just to kind of get an escape from their own place.
What is it, a really nice apartment?
You know what? It's a nice little one-bedroom apartment. It's on Lock Street as well. It has everything you need. It has your Netflix. It has 100% everything. So
that's awesome, man. I really do want to get into that eventually, because I think like the hospitality industry, especially in Canada, if things continue the way they are, a lot of people aren't going to be comfortable traveling or aren't going to be able to travel. So it'll just be like you said, get out of my house. Where can I go?
Exactly.
Cottage country was so hot this year. And I just wish I owned many cottages. my mother-in-law does, and I hear the numbers. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Amazing numbers up there right now.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So, okay, so market-wise, obviously you've got the confidence.
Yep.
What do you recommend to people who are kind of newer? You know, I have a lot of people reaching out to me. They listen to the podcast. They want to get into BRRRRs, and they, you know, trying to figure out how to make the numbers work. What do you recommend to them?
I would recommend just learn as much as possible, watch as many videos, listen to your podcast, just really understand what people are doing and try to build up that confidence, right? Maybe start with a smaller one with the duplex conversion and kind of work your way up into the bigger ones. But the biggest thing is you learn by doing.
Yeah, you didn't start off with BRRRRs, right? You were just buying holds.
Yep.
Do you recommend other people start off that way as well?
Again, for me, it really depends on what my partners wanted, right? If my partner from the beginning wanted to do a BRRRR strategy, I probably would have jumped into it right away. But for me, I've worked with a lot of different partners and I really kind of cater to what they're looking for.
But do you have that fear that like, or did you, when you started, well, I don't know what this is going to cost, or did you have the comfort of knowing you knew enough people that might know?
And I think you just kind of nailed it. And that's where I was going to get to, is it's definitely all about your network, right? Yeah. Being able to pick up the phone and call somebody that's done it and really kind of go through those numbers with them and say, hey, how much does it cost to rip off a roof and put it back together? Or how much does it cost to drywall a 2,500 square foot house? Having that ability will definitely help with your confidence level.
Yeah. I can say from like my first big project, I broke down everything logically I could think would happen, and I ran it by like people who had done rentals before. Like, am I missing something here? And then I went back and I came up with a number. I'm like, this is what I got. And I remember the realtor I was working with at the time, he's like, well, there's no way it can cost that much to rent one. I'm like, here's my list, man.
Yeah.
What am I missing?
Yeah.
And he couldn't come back. He's like, I still think you're too high. But I was right, actually. I was actually higher than it was. I even missed some stuff.
Oh.
So, it doesn't pay to be, how do we want to put it? Wishful? Mm-hmm. Wishful doesn't pay. You got to be realistic and objective. And
conservative.
And be conservative, yeah. You don't want to be too conservative. Like, how do you manage balancing being conservative and still not cutting yourself out of deals unnecessarily, right? If you're too conservative, you don't do the deal.
Absolutely. And I think when I sell it to the investors, I really tell them I'm under promising and trying to over deliver.
Yeah.
Right. I'd rather not do the opposite and over promise and under deliver. So I always like to be conservative on that side and kind of show them the potential. Yeah. Right. Say that, I'm running my numbers at $1,500 a rent for this one bedroom. Likely I could probably push it to 16, maybe 1650.
Yeah, that's really good. I think the other way you can do that is, especially if you know that your investors have got a certain amount of money available, you're not using all of it, so that's good. And then you also say, look, we may not win 100%, we may not knock it out of the park on the initial, but we've got extra land or we've got this potential long-term.
100%.
These are things that can sweeten the pot. So
plan B or plan C down the road.
The big thing is you don't only just have plan A.
Exactly.
Which that's how I started, plan A. I probably didn't even really think plan A through. I had FOMO real bad and I wanted to buy a property. I'm like, okay, gonna buy. And that's how I made some mistakes. So I think, if I had the resources that exist today, like on the internet, like it's an entirely different game now, right? It's 100%. Much harder, but people are much more educated.
Exactly. There's free education everywhere you look online.
Yeah.
Right? So if I was somebody starting out, I would say just grasp as much of it, be a sponge and absorb as much information as you can.
Yeah, you got to do that. So regarding your partners, at what point do you see this getting, or do you see it getting to a point where it's a lot of relationships to manage?
Yeah, you know what? I always look at relationships. This is real estate, right? We're in here for relationships. I love having multiple partners because everybody wants something different, right? So if I do get a different opportunity, there might be one partner that would never look at that opportunity and another partner that would eat up that opportunity the second I show it to them, right? So at one point, it probably will get to the degree of having too many partners to keep those relationships. But my future outlook is definitely focusing on bigger buildings, less projects, but bigger projects.
Scaling, same here. The small doesn't really thrill me. Exactly. I don't really want to do that anymore. I want to focus efforts in a meaningful way.
100%.
Which you're obviously doing. You're scaling to bigger buildings, keeping your eyes open. How many partners did you say you're working with now? Like 6 or something?
About 6 or 7,
6 or 7. And do you look for like a personality fit? Like, how do you know somebody would make a good partner? Or what's a telltale sign that you don't want to be a partner with somebody?
A telltale sign that I don't want to be a partner with somebody, honestly, it's just regular conversations. And you get that kind of gut feeling that somebody isn't in line with what you're looking to do. And it just makes you kind of turned off to partner with them. But just even a simple conversation like this, or like you said at those meetups when you're talking to somebody, it's just a conversation. And to me, I trust my gut a lot. And sometimes you get that gut feeling it's not the right fit.
Where do you find most of these partners?
It's a little bit of everywhere. I would say meetups, referrals, just my network of people that I've known.
Yeah. Do you have clients that come to you just because you're a realtor? We haven't even mentioned that yet. That they just want you to find them a house and you end up partnering with them? Does that happen?
To be honest, that's never happened. I've had people kind of throw it out to me and saying, do you want to partner on this? But again, it's got to be the right time. It's got to be the right place and the right project.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess, it's hard because a lot of that's not that tangible. It is a gut feel, like you said. I think that if we all are honest with ourselves, though, like when something goes bad, we look back and we're like, I should have trusted my gut.
Yep.
And I've been fortunate. I've never had a bad JV partner, but I've had a situation where I said I didn't really need a JV there.
Yeah.
But sometimes that gives you that confidence to move forward. You didn't need to, but because you did more.
And you needed that.
I think, we all have to kind of like listen to ourselves. I talk about this a fair bit. Like real estate investing is so much about understanding yourself and understanding what you need to feel comfortable, to feel motivated.
I couldn't agree more.
And on that note, what is motivating you? What are you trying to accomplish?
You know what? It always comes back to that why. And one of my biggest whys has always been to not sweat the little things, right? And we talk about financial freedom and just being able to experience life to the fullest. And that's kind of what pushes me forward. And to be honest, I just love it. I have a lot of fun doing it. I enjoy it a lot. So I wouldn't want to be doing anything else.
So you're just enjoying this?
I'm enjoying the ride.
Best place to be.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, you don't want to work for money. You want to get paid, hopefully get paid to do nothing and then work for fun.
Exactly, right? It's all fun at the end of the day. And when you're making money, it just makes it even more fun.
Yeah. Okay. So real estate business the same? Like when you're on the transactional side for a realtor business, are you, is that similar enjoyment?
Definitely similar enjoyment.
Yeah.
I love helping out the investors get into the market and that kind of thing, because I really feel like I'm making a difference in their life.
Yeah. And it doesn't hurt that you're talking about something you're interested in, right?
Exactly.
Are you mostly with investors?
I'd say it's probably split 50-50 at this point. A lot of first-time home buyers, just based on my age, I can relate to them a lot better and understand all their fear and everything else like that. So that's also very fulfilling, helping somebody get into the market, because me and you know how fast this market's moving. If people are waiting on the sidelines at this point, 2-3 years from now, there's likely no chance they're going to be able to qualify for something.
Absolutely. So on that note, would you be able to give me a little bit of a market outlook? Like, what do you see happening? What's your gut telling you? What are you seeing, like, just as observations right now happening?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a good question. Definitely with a huge push from Toronto, people looking for more space, realizing that they can work from home, even if it's only 3 to 4 days a week and they only have to commute 1 day back to Toronto. We've seen a huge push from people coming this way because of that reason. It is really driving up the prices for the future, right? Seeing what's happening in Hamilton with all the development. I posted an article on Facebook. There's about 21 new developments that people know about right now happening to the downtown Hamilton. And there's at least another, I'd say 10 to 12 that people don't know about that are happening. So taking a look through downtown Hamilton, it's only getting better and better. The biggest infrastructure is getting redeveloped. So the future for Hamilton looks very bright. I know a lot of people coming from Toronto see a lot of what Toronto used to look like in Hamilton.
Well, yeah, definitely that. Now, the challenge I see with Hamilton is the part, in the harbor. Like that, what are you ever going to do about that? And for those who don't know Hamilton, it's like a manufacturing city traditionally. Wasn't the best demographic. There were like private lenders wouldn't even lend in the area of Hamilton. Now it's hot. Now it's great. But like, what do you see happening there? Do you think north of, Burlington Street, do you think that's ever going to take off, or is that always going to be a...
It's a good question. I'd say maybe the 20-year outlook looks like it's going to get better. I know it was Stelco to Fasco that actually ended up renting out some of their excess land to Hollywood studios. So people that are looking to do movies and things like that in Hamilton for extra space. And that's been a really cool part about Hamilton, is we're seeing a lot more movies being filmed here. There was an actual studio developed in that north end as well too. So there is a lot of this change coming. I think that industrial space and kind of like what you're talking about, the factories are going to have to go under a little bit of a redevelopment to really put Hamilton to the next level.
If they could clean it up a bit, you know, just make it not look quite like it does, that would go a long way. I wonder that. I feel like, the 50-year outlook is a lot of those factories won't be there anymore.
Exactly.
But time will tell.
Time will tell.
Yeah. Okay, Zach, where do people reach you if they want to learn more or follow your journey?
So I'd say Instagram's probably the best. It's Zac Willms, ZACWILLMS is probably the best place to reach out to me.
2 L's. Okay. All right. And I will include that in the show notes, and anything else you'd like to include, I'll get...
Just appreciate you having me on the show, Andrew. It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate you coming. It's nice to see what you're doing. I mean, we've talked a long time, and it was about time that we had this all recorded. So,
happy to be here.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Please make sure to share this episode far and wide. Help it help more people. I really appreciate you tuning in. Thanks. I'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, this is just a quick reminder to head on over to www.andrew-hines.com/DS Live for the Dylan Suter live stream that's happening Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's Wednesday, March 3rd. You can access this through the link in the show notes of this episode, andrew-hines.com/DS Live. Thanks. I'm really looking forward to seeing you on Wednesday night's stream.